look at the French newspapers now. Dipti is with us here on set. You're starting with Emmanuel Macron, his Libya meeting yesterday, of course, dominating the papers today.
Yeah, that's right. It was a pretty fruitful meeting in the end, at least according to Le Figaro, which says that Macron managed to reunite Fayez al-Sarraj, whose government is recognized by the international community, and the military leader, General Khalifa Haftar, the two rival, I quote, enemy Libyan leaders who signed a document pledging to work together for the future of the country. That includes discussing a future ceasefire and holding elections in 2018. Now, the country, of course, has been in this sort of political quagmire for the past 6 years, ever since Colonel Gaddafi was killed. Le Figaro calls this meeting a diplomatic success, much like Le Parisien newspaper, which also says it was a success, but warns that the process both leaders have committed to remains, quote, fragile, because it relies really on the willingness of both leaders to work together.
Of course, Dipti, bringing about stability in Libya is really kind of crucial, isn't it, to security right across North Africa. France also stands to gain from it too. This is according to L'Humanité.
A fairly cynical article that looks at how France and the international community stands to gain from such bringing about stability in Libya. Officially, L'Humanité says the renewal of interest by the West in finding a peaceful political solution to Libya is motivated by fears of terrorism and illegal immigration. The reality, though, is that France and the West are eyeing the vast oil reserves of Libya. Those reserves are among the largest in Africa, which is really whetting their appetites. Also, with peace would come the opportunity for rebuilding the country, and France certainly wants first dibs on those lucrative reconstruction projects that could be lined up in the future. These are what L'Humanité call Macron's Libyan calculations.
Something different now. Emmanuel Macron and his Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe, they're going to be attending a commemoration service, as we mentioned in the news today, which marks 1 year since the death of the priest Jacques Hamel.
They're going to be paying homage. That's what La Croix says on the front page of its newspaper. They've got a special dedicated to the death of priest Jacques Hamel. He was killed brutally in a Normandy church 1 year ago by two jihadists who were later shot dead by police. Now, La Croix says that the emotion provoked by his murder may seem surprising in a country as secular as France, but the reality is that people of all faiths, all backgrounds, all ages have been flocking to this church ever since his death, because Father Hamel represented the kind of religious figure that we all know, whether we're religious or not, that sort of local priest of the neighborhood, the priest who never judged, who was always there to help, to lend a helping hand, a kind ear. He had such close relationships with the community that people didn't even call him Father, they just called him by his first name.
Yeah, good to hear that, Jacques Hamel there, that special tribute later. Now let's talk about a burning topic. This is Libération looking at this, isn't it? Too many tourists in France?
It certainly seems like a summer topic to talk about. We're always talking about too many or not enough. It's sort of a Goldilocks syndrome, isn't it? Not long ago, we were worried that terror attacks in France had driven away the tourists. Well, now they're coming back in droves, and that's also some cause for concern, because Libération is asking on its front page, are there too many tourists now? The charm offensive is back, Libé says. This year, nearly 90 million tourists are expected to visit France, well above last year's 82.5 million people.
Yes, some of France's landmarks, as we can see some of these images, becoming a little bit saturated, perhaps, though.
A lot of them, actually. The Louvre, the Versailles Palace, Notre Dame are all having difficulties managing the hordes of tourists that are visiting these monuments each day. The Eiffel Tower authorities, for instance, have doubled their entry price in hopes of avoiding reaching its limit of 7.3 million visitors, after which it says it'll be nearly impossible to manage the logistics of tourism. Now, the editors at Libé have actually written an editorial today dedicated to this burning topic, saying, while France remains the #1 tourist destination in the world, it ranks 53rd when it comes to how much money each tourist spends. In other words, tourists are coming to France, but they're not being squeezed enough of their hard-earned cash when they do come here.
Spend more when you come, that's the message. Finally then, let's end with a little bit of cinema. You just had a preview of it. The French filmmaker Luc Besson it releases a new blockbuster today. It's called Valerian.
That's right. Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets is being released in France today. It's really a passion project for Luc Besson. It's been years in the making, and the film is an adaptation of a cult classic sci-fi comic book. Le Parisien calls it Besson's crazy gamble, firstly due to the whopping budget that it took to make this film, about 197 million euros.
Wow.
That is the largest budget of any European film. So you really get an idea of exactly why we say blockbuster. Besides the budget, though, Besson's North America release of the film was a complete flop. It totally bombed last week. So he definitely needs to seduce French moviegoers. He'll be banking on the fact that the film was entirely made in France, another thing that he really fought to get done. What if Valerian turns out to be just like another Besson classic, The Fifth Element? That's what Huffington Post is asking. The Fifth Element was also a commercial failure, but it ended up becoming a cult classic, revered for being ahead of its time. Well, time will only tell us if Valerian suffers or rather enjoys the same fate.
Okay, I shall wait for the reviews. Haven't seen any yet. See whether it's worth going to see. Thanks, Dipty. Dipty with the papers on France 24. Very latest news.